Folks, we're all set for some Friday fury from Pune. And just looking back at the series, I was suddenly wondering, are we in the third or the fourth one-day international? It just the other day seemed so long. It's actually only the second game. We've only had one-day international, folks. That long one that England virtually won. India ended up winning. And now it's all about England to try and bounce back in this series with several changes, most of them forced changes, and of course, a new leader in Jos Buttler. Lots to talk about. Let's go straight to our panel of guests, Joy Bhattacharjya and Michael Vaughan, with the update at the toss that once again, Virat Kohli has done a lot good in his life, but winning tosses has not been his strongest suit ever. We'll leave that aside for the moment. He's practiced hard, nothing much he can do about it. But India will be batting first as per Jos Buttler's decree. I'll come straight to Michael Vaughan. The toss, of course, is one talking point, but in terms of a new look team, Eoin Morgan may not have done much with the bat, Michael, but he's always been an inspiration leader.
Yeah, he has. He's been magnificent for England. Jos Buttler's carried on where Eoin Morgan left off, winning the toss. Virat Kohli stated that he wanted to bat first, so both teams doing exactly what they would wish to. England will miss Eoin Morgan's captaincy, his tactics, but Buttler's a very safe pair of hands. Sam Billings, he's not recovered from that shoulder injury, and Liam Livingstone, a young kind of aggressive player from Lancashire, gets his chance. So a good chance for him. Reece Topley comes in for Mark Wood. I thought that would happen. England have just got to play better. I mean, they played reasonably well the other day. They bowled okay at times. They were let down at the end of both innings, both with the ball and with the bat. They didn't bowl so well at the back end of the innings. They allowed India to score too freely. Krunal Pandya was excellent, but I thought they landed it on a plate to him early in his innings to get him going. And with the bat in hand, they were brilliant for 20-odd overs, and then collapsed playing the aggressive brand. It's the way they play. They won't change it. It's just weather. They might have to just play a little bit smarter. But with David Malan in the team, I think it's a batting lineup that needs a Joe Root or a David Malan that can just play and be that kind of glue in the middle of the order. So David Malan could help and just settle England down a little bit. They're playing seventh gear most of the time. David Malan might take them down to about fourth or fifth gear.
Yeah, and it's also about a new leader, Joy. Perhaps before we talk about Team India, at the end of the previous game, Eoin Morgan was unequivocal about how England like to play hard. They will keep doing so as part of the preparation in a sense. But I wonder if a new leader will allow those gears to come down a little bit.
Mike, look, I don't think for one match they can change very much because it's in their DNA now. Attacking is in their DNA. So, personally, as Michael was saying, David Malan might be the kind of batsman who say, I'm going to take a little bit more time. Exactly like we were talking about, Joe Root would have been a great influence in a team like this who can play in more than one gear. But otherwise, this is a formula that has got them success. This is a formula that has got them to one World Cup win, one World Cup T20 final. And I can't see them changing. Also with the T20 World Cup around the corner, because let's face it, these ODIs were done to say that, okay, guys, we also have this other format ODI and we've got to fit them in. And literally they've been tossed in because none of the teams are actually interested at this point in time in playing ODIs. That's the truth of the matter. With the World Cup IPL happening next, the World Cup T20 away, nobody's interested in playing an ODI. For them, it's like saying, for somebody like a Surya, somebody like who's making his debut, it's important. I think Krunal would have really appreciated it. But I think for the teams, they're wondering, we could have had the tests and the ODIs and finished with the T20s and started straight off with the IPL. Perhaps this doesn't make much sense. But given that, I think they'll just take the best opportunity they can. And I think Josh would say that, it's a nice time to captain. There's not that much pressure. Everyone's going to forget about this match in the next few days and concentrate on the IPL. Let me just have a good time, relax the team under me, let them have a good time, play freely. We were under the pump last time. There's no pressure on us. We've lost our captain. People are going to say, this is a decimated squad. It could just work in their favor. Just that, mentally just saying, okay, play your natural game. There's not that much pressure.
Yeah, it's sort of a reversal of roles, Michael. England now need to do in India. Because every time India, we know that old formula, lose the first game, come back to win the series. And especially in that test series in Australia, it was not just losing, it was losing players, it was an injury list. So here, England are sort of faced with a similar predicament in a sense.
Yeah, India were brilliant in Australia. To do it overseas is incredible. But to do it in India against this Indian side, it'll take some doing. England have made changes, obviously, because of the injuries. Reece Topley, the last time he bowled in a match, I've no idea. It was the last decade, I think. You've got Moeen Ali that's only just come back into the side. England they'll be rusty, so I'm not expecting a huge amount. But when you've got the players like Johnny Bairstow, Jason Roy, Josh Butler with the bat in hand, it doesn't really matter how many the opposition get. They can chase it down, as we saw in the first game. That Johnny Bairstow came out and played it, but he just played another 5 or 10 overs the way that he was. England would have won that game. So whatever India get, England will have a good chase at, because they've got some real quality. But I'm not expecting a huge amount from the England side today because of all the changes and because of the players that haven't played too much.
So interesting. I tend to agree with you on that. I don't think they're going to change their way of playing. And as you said, 350, 360, 370, it doesn't matter what's on the board. They have that firepower to take chases. And that's important for them, that they have that ability to be able to hit the ball at any point in time. The only thing is, do you think, Michael, the middle order is as good? I mean, the top 3 or 4 look really good. Do you think Butler will bat up a bit, maybe at 4? Or will he stay at 5 and, hold back?
It depends on the game situation, but I think he'll stay at 5. I think now Sam Billings not in the team, and it's where they use Liam Livingstone. Do they use him as a finisher down the bottom? He's so used to batting high up for Lancashire in his franchise. You go to the IPL, the Big Bash, he opens for the Perth Scorchers. So he's actually very much geared to getting in quite early. So I would think Livingstone will probably bat 4, Butler will be 5. We'll have to wait and see. You're never quite sure with England where they're going to kind of position their order, but they've got enough firepower. They've got certainly a player in Liam Livingstone that's got all the shots. He might bowl a bit as well today. He can bowl leg spin and off spin. He's a brilliant fielder. There's his numbers: average of just over 36, strike rate of just under 100. And in England, in particular List A cricket, 50 over cricket, they don't play on that many brilliant wickets. So those numbers don't look incredible, but they're not bad in terms of the wickets that he would have had to play on. He's a talent, and he's very, very confident. He won't be scared. He's not one of these kind of players that comes into the international game will fear it. He'll have a go. He'll have a real red hot go of playing aggressively. He's quite chirpy, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the ring. He'll probably chirp 1 or 2 of the Indian players. That's what he does. He's had a few kind of confrontations in county cricket over the years, so it's just the way that he plays his game. He's very aggressive.
Worth looking forward to Liam Livingstone showing his brand of cricket. Some of us would have seen him in the Big Bash, and certainly he almost seemed to settle in there as if he was one of their own. But Team India, normally we discussed that at the very top, but we've been waiting because one big change. Who was going to replace Shreyas Iyer? We already knew he was not going to play. Rohit Sharma was a question mark, but he is playing. But yes, Rishabh Pant, who might just end up being the captain, the replacement captain in that particular franchise, walks straight into the team. He's not played ODI cricket for a while. So, Joy, that's a change we did kind of expect. But for Rishabh Pant, it'll be his chance to show, I can do it in tests. Obviously, I do it in T20s. This format is not alien either.
Talking about Rishabh Pant always reminds me, just now Michael was talking about a confident young man, and there isn't a more confident young man than Rishabh Pant, and that's his thing. He's just completely and utterly unfazed by what's happening. And I was talking once on this show itself about this famous incident where the Delhi under-19 team dropped him because they thought he wasn't doing well enough. They dropped him from the squad, let alone the team. So he just packed his bag and he was going home. And one of our panelists from the Hindi show, Ajay Jadeja, stopped him and said, if you want to come and practice in my club. He said, don't worry, they'll call me in a few days. They'll need me. And he was just so calm and collected about it. So he's another man who has a great sense of self-belief and self-importance. In fact, the other thing I wanted to say was Liam Livingstone has this other record, which is you normally see in India. For a club called Nantwich, he once scored 350 runs in 123 balls. So the first time I read about him was when I was researching quiz questions. I said, who is this guy who's hit? And you don't have too many of these in England where 350 runs, list A innings is quite a bit. So that's the first time. So this guy can really, really hit the ball.
Well, there's a big hint for all of you out there. the answer to today's Joy Factor question is not Liam Livingston. It could have been, but he just gave a spoiler alert for that particular question. So it's going to be something different. Probably, you never know. It could be the wrong one going the wrong way. But let's talk about another special player who we've seen adapt himself to different positions in the order in different forms of the game. And certainly adaptability, flexibility are things that are really assets to any team at any level. Let's hear from him and then we'll talk a little bit more.
Look, when you're part of this Indian team, you always know that the competition is going to be really, really high, and you can never sit back and feel comfortable and feel like you own your position. You'll always be challenged, and that's the good thing about. I mean, that's how our country is. It's not short of talent, and there will be players coming in and knocking on the door all the time. So, as a player in the team, you always try to push yourself and keep training harder and keep working on your game and try to get better and better every time. And whenever the opportunity comes, you try to grab it with both hands, and and you try to keep doing that in every series.
Just listening to KL Rahul there gives you a sense of that calmness, that assuredness that I think any team would like, Joy, in wherever, be it the middle order, be it an explosive top order batsman.
Yeah, also the acceptance that this is how Indian cricket is. And if you remember at their peak, at Australia at their peak between that, say, 99 and 2004, 5 or 97, 98, 2005, you always had this. You had 6-7 players who'd be there. And then the next 3-4 players, you didn't know when they'd appear and when they'd come and when they'd go. And there, people like Kasparovich and all, there were so many players who were there on the sidelines of that cricket. And Rahul knows that. Rahul knows that there's a situation like that. Similarly, look at India cricket. At one time, that opening slot became a logjam. You had a successful opening partnership like Sachin and Saurav, and you broke it to bring Sehwag in. So, when you have a top side, and the Indian side was a top side in those days, you have to make those changes. And people are in those conditions, you just bat wherever you get the opportunity. And I think Rahul knows that. I remember for a statistical show, did some research and figured out the odds of getting into the Indian cricket team were tougher than the odds of topping the joint entrance exam for IITs and medical colleges at the same year. The odds were more than that. So that's how difficult it is to get in. So my point is that these guys know whatever. If they tell him that, you'll bat at 7 and come in, he'll just do that. And that's the truth of it.
Michael, I'm not even sure if there's an equivalent to that education conundrum that we have in India, in England. I don't know if it's about getting a doctor or Cambridge, but it's something right up there. But for KL Rahul, I think the mantra is flexibility, and that's, I think, the only thing that's keeping him going.
Yeah, and if you actually look at the history of white ball cricket, many players have gone from the middle to opening the batting and had success. You look at Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli's just trying it in T20 cricket, Johnny Bairstows, etc., Adam Gilchrist. The list is endless. Mark Waugh, but there's not many have actually opened really well and then had to go back into the middle of the innings and done it equally as well. And that's what KL Rahul's doing. His consistency and his performances of late have been tremendous. Those numbers there on the screen from Australia to New Zealand, obviously the start in this series with his really good 62 the other day. He's a class act. We didn't see him in form in the T20s, and he found form the other day. There was that one pull shot into the stands off Sammy Curran, and he was away. You could see that he suddenly started to find his flow, his rhythm, his confidence. And when you can play spin like he can, and when you can face the quick bowlers, having been at the top of the order, he has to be good at facing quick bowlers. And he's got that ability to hit 6. And I think if you're going to bat at 5, 6 and 7 in this white ball era, you have to have the ability to hit 6s. And that's exactly what KL Rahul has.
Yeah, I think just to finish off on that discussion, Joy, one of the conundrums we talked at in the build-up to that 2019 World Cup, of course, it was the big 4. It was who's going to be at number 4. We won't go to 4. We won't go to 4. Let's just skip to 5. 1, 2, 3, sorted, no problem, Team India. But it was not just number 4. It was who are your 5, 6, 7 who in 50-over cricket can end up winning matches, unlike in T20 cricket. So it's not that you're telling someone, listen, go and bat at 5. You'll have less balls to play. there is a role to play there, and he's playing it.
Absolutely. I think the number 5 role, the more the format becomes longer, the more of a chance the number 5 batsman has a chance of having an opportunity to make a difference in the game. So if Rahul would say, he said he could probably tell you, I'll bat at 6 in a one-day international match. Just don't bat me at 6 in a T20 match, because in a one-day international match, he still has a chance of making a difference. He still probably has a chance of batting. The truth, though, is that India's 1, 2, and 3 has been so good for them, and the rest have been starved for opportunities. So Rahul in some way works because his strike rate is higher. So because they succeed so often that you need guys who heat up fast, who will have 7, 8, 10 overs to play normally.
Yeah, but on the other side of it, there's going to be one name missing from the England lineup. We mentioned him at the top of the show, won't be captaining today because of that split webbing. So Owen Morgan misses out today as captain. But Michael, also, more importantly, as batsman, as the finisher, as the enforcer, that's how we remember the Owen Morgan. Anyone who remembers that Afghanistan innings in that World Cup will just see, goodness, I mean, we know Owen Morgan can bat, but what about hitting that many sixes in a game? It was almost insane. It seemed to be a little bit off the series, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been in great form since the World Cup in 2019. He's had 100 against Ireland, and there his numbers of late. He's not had a great deal of opportunity. But for Owen Morgan and the level of what he has been playing at for a few years, you would expect a few more runs. So, those numbers tell you that they're not going to really miss his runs because he hasn't been getting too many, but they'll certainly miss his calm leadership and his tactical nous. In 50 over, I heard an interview he did the other day, and he was just so focused on talking about the T20 World Cups. This one in India that takes place this year, and the following one the year after in Australia. I just get a sense of he wants to get through this T20 World Cup first, then get to the next one, and he really does just take small segments of his career at once. He's not looking too far ahead. By the next World Cup in India, 2023, you have to be honest, he may not be in the team by then. He may have moved on. It'll certainly not get pushed out. He'll decide upon himself when he wants to move on. There was whispers after 2019 when he lifted the trophy that he was going to step aside from the 50-over game. And I still think that's possible. I still think it is possible that by the time we get to the 2023 50-over World Cup, Josh Buttler may be leading the side. So, he's a fine player, Owen Morgan, but as those numbers just suggest, he's not been in great nick of late.
And the worrying part from England's point of view, Joy, was it's not that he needed an Afghanistan-like innings in this series, be it 50 over T20 format. He had opportunities to come in and even contribute a 30, which is what England desperately needed. And we saw a couple of almost un-Morgan-like dismissals.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, though, is that he's unfazed. I don't know. That's the one thing that I've seen Morgan in a dressing room for 2 years, and he just never loses it. And the other thing is that he has a very, very clear idea when he wants to give up the format. So in 2013, when he was in KKR, he was thinking, he still thought he had a chance as a test cricketer. And he valued his opportunities. He says, I'm going to try and make it. He went back early from KKR just to give himself the opportunity to try and play more cricket for the summer and make himself available for the test. At 2017, he said, look, that format's not for me anymore. And he stepped away from it. I think here the problem is different because I think when England would like to change, I don't think England would want different captains in different formats. So they don't want a test. They've already got Root and Morgan. They don't want Root, somebody else for ODIs and Morgan. And I think that's the only reason Morgan is still leasing them in ODI cricket. Otherwise, I also genuinely feel that his interest in the game is now clearly focused on trying to be the first captain to get a World Cup in both the 50 over and the T20 formats. I think that's his focus now very clearly.
Yep, and it's a fair focus to have because there's two opportunities, as Michael Vaughan mentioned, in 2022 and 23 rather 21 and 22 for the two T20 World Cups. With 2020 gone, we're not sure which year it is right now. Just keep reminding myself. We are in 2021, folks. There we go. There's a little bell to remind us which year we are in. Right. In terms of where we are in the game, there will be no Owen Morgan. There will be no Shreyas Iyer, but there will be umpire's call, at least for the moment. How long that's going to last, we're not entirely sure. Everyone's been talking about it. so has the Indian captain. Let's hear from him.
Look, I played a long time when there was no DRS, right? If the umpire made a decision, whether the batsman liked it or not, it stayed like that. Vice versa, if the umpire gave it not out and it was out, it stayed like that. Whether it was marginal or not. According to me, umpire's call right now is creating a lot of confusion. When you get bowled as a batsman, you don't expect the ball to hit more than 50% into the stumps to consider yourself bowled. So when the ball is being shown as clipping the stumps, the bails are going to fall. So from a basic cricket common sense, I don't think that there should be any debates on that. If the ball's clipping the stumps, it should be out. Whether you like it or not, you lose the review. And that's how simple the game has to be. If it hits the stumps or it misses the stumps, it doesn't matter how much it's hitting and those kind of things.
You'd have to say almost a bit of a brave call from Virat Kohli, because it's something that will impact batsmen more than it will bowlers, Michael. So, but it makes logical sense. I mean, we've lived with it for a while, but when it comes to those marginal decisions, hit the stumps, whether by 30%, 40% or 80%, the bails will still fall.
Yeah, I kind of get that, but I like it as it is. You know, I don't think Virat's quite getting that right, because, you know, you've got to understand that technology was brought in to get rid of the howler, you know, to get rid of that absolute stinking decision. And I think it's done that. The skill of DRS, and a lot of people don't realise, it's the skill of the captain and the teams to review what they feel is not quite right. You know, so if you feel that as a team and as a decision maker out in the middle, the umpire's got it wrong, you've got your reviews to kind of go, thank you very much, we'll have a look upstairs. Of course, the umpire's calls in favour of the decision on the field, but we must always remember that DRS was brought in to get rid of that absolute stinking decision. And that's exactly what it's done. Delighted to hear that the ICC will overturn the soft signal. So as we saw with that David Malan catch, the soft signal from 150 yards away was out. No idea how you can do that. And then the third umpire had no option but to give that out because there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it. So I'm happy with that. But in terms of the umpire's call, I completely get where there's confusion. For a cricket fan, it's quite hard to understand. But for a non-cricket fan to suddenly see that a ball's hitting the stumps, but it's an umpire's call, it's been given not out on the field, so it's going to continue to be not out. But it's hitting the stumps, it's going to be out. I completely get that. It's very, very difficult to get a perfect situation in all situations. I think DRS works at the minute. I think the best teams and the best captains who use it well and have the best keepers who understand the LBW law. I think some of these keepers behind the stick actually don't understand the LBW law with some of the reviews that they go to the third umpire with. But those that use it well and understand it the best, and accepts it, I think it's a very, very fair system. But it is confusing at times. I'll give him that.
Yeah, interesting. I think we should get to a point statistically where not just the captains and the fielding side, we should also have a tick box in terms of how many bowlers insist that the reviews should be taken and how many keepers support them and how often they were right and how often they were wrong. There's an exercise for us over the next 12 months. But Joy, coming back to umpire's call, we leave soft signal as it is. I don't think there's any debate there. What's your interpretation of umpire's call as it is right now?
See, I, fortunate enough, both you and I, Gautam, have spent a lot of time in the broadcasting side of things. And one of the things that we do know is that, we've done extensive work with Hawkeye. That Hawkeye is, at the end of the day, it's a technology, but it's not 100% technology. No technology can be 100% in terms of, following it. So I tend to, on this point, go with Michael, that the point of it is very simple. If the umpire feels that it's a marginal decision and this is what he thought of this marginal decision, I think we should go with him, because the problem of it is if you put up your hands, it's not as if technology is 100% there either. Technology today is not where, even now it still can't tell you exactly if it hit. If technology was 100%, you wouldn't need that umpire out there. So it's not. So let's face it, it's not, the umpire is not just there because he's, ornamental and he's value to the game in terms of, tradition and all that. He's there because there's some things that can't always be judged. So I'm with Michael on this. The problem is the way the it's shown on television makes it very difficult for the average spectator to accept. And I think you've got to do something there. Either you've got to educate him better, you've got to find a way of showing it, which makes it, which obscures it and says, okay, this is a doubtful call. So this part of it is, it's like a fog. It's like a fog of war. It's grey. But we can't make out exactly what's happened under these circumstances. I feel that's the only way to tackle it.
I like that. I actually love that, Joy. I mean, I didn't think of it like that, but I think rather than showing the entire stump and the percentage of the ball, you just have the area, which is half the stump, half the leg stump to half the off stump. That's a green zone. Everything outside maybe is colored red or gray, whichever color you might like. Gray area is good. And then I think that's excellent. And if anyone's listening, that's a great suggestion to put at, because at the end of the day, the people who are wondering what's going on are the fans. And if you can educate the fans, nothing like it. Make it nice and colorful, make it nice and clear. Actually not sort of like Joy's questions, because that makes everything a bit fuzzy and foggy and makes it difficult to understand for the likes of Michael Vaughan. But nonetheless, we continue with that tradition, Joy. So go and muddle us all up for another couple of seconds.
Okay, this is about in a question which I just found it really interesting, that among Indians, the maximum wickets that one-day international wickets that any person has taken in a single ground is basically the first three are all in Sharjah, and it's basically Kumble, Srinath, and Prasad. Who is at number 4? We come back to that mysterious number 4. We can't get away from number 4 in our questions and in our discussions. And on which ground? I guarantee you, however confusing the question is, the answer is interesting.
Yeah. And I can hazard to say that it'll not only be interesting, but more often than not, very relevant. But yeah, Sharjah. See where you're going next. Just one little conundrum we need to solve, as we always try and do in this show. And I think it's going to be very relevant to see what kind of score Jos Buttler and company will be faced with. Because let's remind you once again, India have lost the toss. They've been asked to bat first, though they were more than happy to do so, as Virat Kohli mentioned. I think we'll go with him on this one, because it was not just a mind game he was playing. India would like to put the runs on the board and let England confuse themselves in a chase again. So, Michael, I'll come to you first. With India batting first, we know what they got last time around. How much are you reckoning this time?
I'm going to stay very consistent and say 328.
I had a feeling you'd do that. I just had a feeling you'd go there.
For those of you not aware of the history, it was 164 in the T20 internationals. Very simply, doubled to 328. Got it right in the last game because it was a plus minus 15. So 328 minus 15 got us that last boundary at the end, got him into 317. Joy, higher, lower, low ball? You like the low ball?
Back to low ball. I'm going again 297 now.
Okay. Low ball with a little bit higher. I went 359 last time around because it was the anniversary of that World Cup final. That was the score India had to face. But I just have a feeling that they should have got it that time. And this time around, they'll be going for 3-0. So why not go for it one more time? I'll stick slightly lower, 340. 340. So eat into Michael's territory a little bit and can go up as high as 355. So come on, Team India, put the runs on the board. Lots to look forward to. We're going to be back in the 15th over to see how India are going. Important to see how many wickets they've lost, because the whole talk is keep wickets intact in the first 10 overs. Will India do that? We'll tell you all in the 15th over on Cricbuzz Combox. Join us all. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joy, for Cricbuzz Live at the mid-innings and, of course, for Cricbuzz Combox.